Today we're going to be continuing our sermon series called King of My Heart as we go throughout 1st and 2nd Samuel. You see our giant chess piece on here. Anybody play with chess pieces this big ever? I think it's cool. Our big idea for this sermon series is that you must choose to have God be king of your heart. Bob Dylan, if you're a fan of his or ever listened to his music, he quoted once that you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. The thing is, in life, we will constantly be choosing who will be first place in our hearts, who will have our first affection, who will have the highest priority in our life. And we might think it's ourselves. It might be a political leader. It might be somebody who is very influential in our life. It might be just something. But somebody is always going to take first place. And if it's not God, it's going to be something that continuously needs to increase. It's a hole that we have to constantly fill. I titled the sermon today, Dude, Where's My Donkeys? When I was a kid, I remember this movie coming out. I don't endorse this movie by any means. It was called Dude, Where's My Car? Goofy movie. I remember two guys lost their car in the morning, and they find out as they're trying to find the car throughout the day that all kinds of crazy stuff happened throughout the night. And they had no idea that it all happened. And it was like they were experiencing this big adventure that they never knew anything about. And that's kind of what I picture with 1 Samuel 9. It's like this big movie that happens. The big idea, ultimately, is they're trying to find a king. We left off in 1 Samuel 8. The Israelites are desiring a king, and Samuel tells everybody to go home. 1 Samuel 9, we see that this is the journey to find the king. So the big idea today is the king that matters is the king that saves. Here's the context, though. Samuel, who we see throughout the beginning of these two books, was born around 1100 BC and lived to about 1012 BC. He began reigning as a judge when he was about 38 years old. And he had been through so much. He lived in a temple. He had seen the oppression of Israel, the loss of the ark, where the very presence of God was. And he had seen all kinds of great battles. And he led the Israelite people out of these battles and gave them a great time of peace. And he ruled as a judge for 47 years, some of which was alongside the kings. During the end of Samuel's reign, as the sole judge, as the sole leader of the land, when he was appointing his sons to be leaders instead, his sons weren't so good. It said that they perverted justice and they took bribes. You probably don't want a leader like that, do you? But the people, the Israelites, did not want these two boys as their leader. They said, they're not like you, Samuel. We need somebody better. In fact, we have our own idea. I got it. Let's be like all the nations around us. Let's be like our enemies. They got things together, right? So, Israel's first king was appointed approximately 1050 BC. Big question, though, is how does Israel get a king? When they've never had a king before, how do they get one? We are left ultimately with a cliffhanger at the end of 1 Samuel 8. And we see a very strange and very ordinary adventure happen right after that, involving donkeys. And it sets the scene. I actually looked up who the most attractive two men alive in 2023 was. Because, I'll explain. Oh, I could have put your picture up there, dang. That's good. So we got Henry Cavill on the left and Timothy Chalamet, I think. He's actually Willy Wonka out on the screen out there, or the posters out there. He's actually said to be the most good-looking man alive in 2023. So, this is what I picture at the beginning. In 1 Samuel 9, 1 through 2, it says, there was a wealthy, influential man named Kish from the tribe of Benjamin. And he was the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Ber-Korath, son of Aphiah, of the tribe of Benjamin. His son Saul was the most handsome man in Israel, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the entire land. So you got the setup of two characters, two people, this family that was extremely influential, known for, the father known for being a very powerful man, a warrior of a man, a wealthy man. All kinds of animals, big house. He's set. This is like the Kardashians of the day. Everyone knew all about Kish. And they knew his son because he was so good looking. So I picture these two characters, Henry Cavill and Timothy Chalamet. Like, these are the two people set up. Everybody has their pictures of their faces in their minds, and everybody knows them for this. Saul's name is really interesting, too. Anybody want to guess what Saul's name means? Saul's name means asked for. The people asked for a king, and they literally will get a man named asked for. Cool. So they get asked for, who is the prettiest guy, the most strong, best dressed, famous guy that you can possibly imagine. This is the setup that we have. Now, what happens next is one day Kish's donkey strayed away, and he told Saul, take a servant with you. I picture the servant going like, oh, me. Let's go. And they go look for the donkeys. So Saul took one of the servants and traveled the hill country of Ephraim, the land of Shalisha, the land of Sha'alim. I can't pronounce them all. And the entire land of Benjamin. But they couldn't find the donkeys anywhere. Finally, they entered the region of Zuph. And Saul said to his servant, let's go home. By now my father will be more worried about us than the donkeys. But the servant said, I've just thought of something. There's this man of God who lives here in this town. He is held in high honor by all the people because everything he says comes true. Let's go to him, and perhaps he will tell us which way to go. But we don't have anything to give him. We don't have anything to offer him, Saul replied. Even our food is gone. We don't have a thing to give him. Well, the servant says, I have one small piece of silver. We can at least offer it to the man of God and see what happens. In those days, if people wanted a message from God, they would say, let us go and ask the seer. For the prophets used to be called seers in those days. All right, Saul agreed, let's try it. So they started into town where the man of God lived. To give you an idea of how goofy this adventure is, let's see. Gibeah right here. See it? That's where Saul lives. Right above where Benjamin is. And they take this big trip all throughout Ephraim, up to Shalisha, up to Sha'alim, down to Zuph, back to Ramah. That's like 60 miles worth of walking in 3 days. Maybe 80 miles if they're panning out everywhere. It's a lot of walking to find donkeys. And now, if I picture this right, if you lose a couple donkeys, you're probably going to notice. You have all these kind of caretakers if you're a very wealthy person. And I imagine if they lose them, it's only going to be a short time. And they're not going to be that far away. But Saul goes from here way up here and all around and can't find the donkeys over the course of 3 days. So it turns into a very trivial journey. It turns into a very inconvenient journey. I want you to picture what interrupts you in your day-to-day life where you have to stop everything in order to keep going. Can you picture that? For me, it's either my keys or it's my phone. If they go missing, I'm stuck. I remember it was a handful of months ago, I was trying to help Pastor Scott find his lost keys. He had been searching all day and couldn't find it anywhere. He teared apart the trash. He teared apart his garage. He teared apart his house, cleaned everything up. I'm sure it was great to clean at the same time. I love when you clean accidentally. Searched outside all over. And I came over, I had a metal detector, and I was trying to help him find it. We were trying to dig up everywhere. And eventually, I remember he said, "Wow, we're going to have to give up. I'm going to have to buy like a $300, $400 set of keys again." You know, it's a defeating feeling when you spend all day and you can't find any fruit for your search. I ended up going home and I was like, "Oh man, I'm praying you find your keys, and you know, I hope the best for you." And he tears apart his trash for the fourth time and finds it at the very bottom. That's great. He tells me now that he's got an air tag on his keys now, so never going to lose it again, right? This doesn't happen with Saul, though. This whole journey is so interrupting and so disorienting. It's such an inconvenience, but it is a very ordinary task that eventually leads to something extraordinary. Because they get all the way around after traveling 60 miles, after exhausting all their food, and after being extremely tired and wondering, you know, my dad's going to be so mad at me, and I'm so, he's worried maybe I died or something. So they get back to Ramah, which is, give or take, 5 or 10 miles away. And the servant of Saul says, "Hey, I got this idea. There's this prophet that lives right here." I want you to remember this. The prophet is Samuel, and every single person in Israel knows who Samuel is, except Saul. If you look at what he says, he gives no indication inside of verses 6 and verses 7 that he has any idea who Samuel is or that he cares. His first response is, "Well, we have nothing to offer him. Our food is gone. We don't have a thing to give him. We've got nothing." He doesn't know who the guy is. Or if he does, he doesn't care. His first response is hesitance. And you see a sense of ignorance. There's a resistance naturally that builds in the face of an extraordinary opportunity if you know nothing about it. If you have an opportunity that will shape and change your life, but you don't know what's going to happen next, is your first instinct to go, 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 or pause the brakes? Most people pause first. It's natural. Saul pauses first. In the face of this, it's also inconvenient. He has nothing to give this prophet. His idea is, I have to buy my advice from Samuel. I have to buy my advice from this spiritual leader. I'm sure he equivocated it to a spiritual guru of sorts. They have nothing except this equivalent to a quarter or like a $2 bill. They pull out a small quarter piece of a coin. It's not worth much in that day. But they say essentially, if we give this to Samuel, maybe he'll answer this small little task that we got for him. Maybe he'll help us to find our donkeys and we'll be able to carry on with our day. It's not that convenient. It's not that inconvenient for him. So Saul's offered this choice. Can I either seek Samuel or forget Samuel and go home? Bo yabo is an interesting word. It's a Hebrew phrase which anytime you see two verbs smashed together, it's like if I were to tell you, I'm going to go home. It doesn't make sense to us today, but back then it would be like, I'm going to go home as quick as I possibly can. It's an extreme force when you smash two verbs together. So when the servant says to Saul that he bo yabos, or that Samuel bo yabos, that means that Samuel absolutely knows what he's talking about, and everything that he says comes true. So he has absolute confidence that Samuel is who he says he is. So Saul's offered this choice. He has hesitance, but he's eventually convinced. All the while, Saul has some glaring issues that arise. Again, he doesn't know who Samuel is, despite Samuel being the judge over Israel in Samuel's hometown being within 10 miles of Saul. Gibeah was just right below Ramah. Should have known, but, he's got other things on his mind. Saul is hesitant to seek spiritual advice. His first instinct is, I can fix it. I can do it. If I can't do it, I'll give up. He thinks that a gift or money are needed to give in order to get an answer from the seer. If we want something fixed, it's easy to say, if I give a little bit of money, if I give a little bit of treasure, if I give a little bit of time, everything's going to be fixed if I do it my way and by my effort. These are the natural responses I think that we would have as well. But it goes on. Saul's eventually convinced that this is the right path to go. And, he's not necessarily the most spiritually in tune kind of person. He's thinking about himself and he's thinking about his current task. He's tunnel visioned to just find these donkeys and go home. So, verses 11 through 13 says this. As they were climbing the hill to the town, they met some young women coming out to draw water. So Saul and his servant asked, "Is the seer here today?" "Yes," they replied. "Stay right on this road. He is at the town gates. He has just arrived to take part in a public sacrifice up at the place of worship. Hurry and catch him before he goes up there to eat. The guests won't begin eating until he arrives to bless the food." So to set the scene, evening strikes. Saul and his servant, they arrive into town. And at this time, at the end of the day, is when the women would come out to fill up their jars full of water. It was usually the safer time. It was the cooler time. Not as much danger would be happening during this time. Publicly, a male engaging with women in public like this would be a big taboo. The town would protect women by not allowing this kind of engagement to happen. But the only instance where this would be okay is if a complete stranger came up and was asking for directions or information. I think public flirtation was heavily frowned upon. But imagine the prettiest and the best and the most handsome guy comes up to these women. It's like, "Hey, is the seer here today?" I can't do the attractive voice. Bear with me. Hey. But I picture he's super suave. He's got that hair flip or whatever. And comes up and the women are like, "Oh, yes, he's here. Stay on the road and keep going up." And they're excited to give this information and they carry on their way. There's a lot of coincidences that are lining up. Convenience is perfectly in tune with this moment. It may beg the question ultimately, why the donkeys? Why this big journey to reach this point? Why this big journey for Saul and Samuel just to get to this point, just to meet? And frankly, it's always interesting to see how God works in ordinary ways to build extraordinary opportunities. Think of how you've got to the point where you are now. I've imagined many times, I remember it was 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago at this point, I was still in high school, and I remember I was a kid who would complain about the government. I knew nothing about the government. And I would just sit in trees eating pizza with my friends. That was my thing. Yeah, we called it pizza in a tree. Original. I cannot picture, I don't think I could have pictured where I was in the tree there up to the point where I am now on a stage having the privilege to preach God's word. I cannot imagine how I got to that point other than all of these ordinary events, God leading me to that point. And I think it all started with saying, "God, use me as you see fit." This is how God's working here. In an ordinary event of donkeys going missing and these two boys going on this big adventure, a fruitless adventure, but an adventure that turns into something extraordinary. So they climbed the hill. They enter the town. As they passed through the gates, Samuel was coming out towards them to go up to the place of worship. Now the Lord had told Samuel the previous day, "About this time tomorrow I will send you a man from the town of Benjamin. Anoint him to be leader of my people, Israel. He will rescue them from the Philistines, for I have looked down on my people in mercy and have heard their cry." When Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said, "That's the man I told you about. He will rule my people." Just when Saul approached Samuel at the gateway, he asked, "Can you please tell me where the seer's house is?" I always find that scene particularly funny. The picture here says, "Is this a pigeon?" It's a funny meme I saw in the past. It's one of those like smack my head kind of moments. It's like this should be obvious. Saul comes into town. Samuel's coming down. Saul's big. I'm picturing maybe as big as me or bigger. And he looks down at old man Samuel and is like, "Have you seen the seer?" And I imagine Saul probably their names are hard. Samuel wants to say, "Well, I imagine that I see the seer, because I am the seer." Here's your pun for the day. Tell your friends. I had a moment like this. It was super frustrating. I went to go see a concert a handful of years ago, and I remember I got there early, was standing in line, and right next to me was the lead guitarist. And he was talking with me, going like, "Oh, hey, what's going on? How you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so excited to see this concert, and, I love this band," and I didn't know who he was. But he gets on the stage, and I'm just like, ugh. This is the kind of scene that's set up, though. You see that Saul doesn't really have it all together. He doesn't know what's going on. He's not spiritually in tune. And he's just kind of getting whipped along by the course of events. God's moving in an extraordinary way, but Saul has no clue. Saul knew maybe of the person he wanted to get this scoop on of where to find the donkeys. He had some kind of inkling, but he didn't know the man. Samuel, though, is interesting. You see the comparison. Samuel knew nothing about Saul, but he was so spiritually in tune with God that he knew who this was, and he was listening to where God was leading him next. We see a lot of curious language, though, that's used when God is speaking to Samuel. God chose a man from the tribe of Benjamin. In recent history, only a couple generations back, they were radically evil. To the degree, if you know the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah back in Genesis, they were awful. And horrible events happen inside of the end of Judges. So much so that what happens there? The whole nation of Israel gathers together and goes to war against Benjamin. Nearly wipes them out. And the end shows sympathy towards the tribe of Benjamin, and they slowly begin to repopulate. This is only a handful of generations back, and they're slowly getting back on their feet again. But God chooses somebody from the tribe of Benjamin, albeit this tribe is one of the most strategically placed for a king to reside, one of the safest places, one of the greatest places to be militarily. God also does not use the word king for this passage. It says leader here, that this will be the leader of my people in verse 16. The word that he uses is prince of my people. It shows this sense of stewardship, that God is still king, and that this should be a steward of all the people. This is how God's idea is set up for the right kind of kingdom. And there's this system of checks and balances that is set up afterward for a prophet to rule alongside. This is the intention of the right kind of kingdom. Because God continuously uses the phrase, "This is my people." He's not giving up his people to a king. He's giving his people to be stewarded well. Can you imagine this today? in our government? We have all kinds of checks and balances, but can you picture that God is first king? Then you have the leader or leaders, and then you have somebody to keep them in check, to keep pointing them to God? Can you picture that? What an ideal system of government that would be. But that's not the way of the world, is it? And that's not what happens afterward. Saul, again, who's asked for, is the answer to the cry that people asked for. You see in verse 17, what makes Saul so interesting, not just his name, is that he is the one who looks the part of the perfect king. He is the prettiest. He is the strongest. He is the best dressed. If you want a king, you want somebody who looks the part. You don't want somebody who's shabby or small or dingy, right? You want somebody to play the role well, look super strong. That is the natural inclination of what a good king looks like. But alongside that, a king who is like all the other nations also has its baggage. Even if they look the part, they do things in a negative sense. This word that's used later on, that he will rule my people. That word is always used in a negative sense. Its meaning is to imprison, to silence, to hinder, to hold back. And to give you a sneak preview, Saul starts out great. He leads the people great. He's full of signs, though, that lead people in all kinds of wrong directions. He becomes a barrier to people to experience the welfare of a healthy nation and what is best for God's people. He betrays his own son. He betrays the priests of God. He loses his mind at one point. He makes his own decisions. He acts as a priest instead of a king. He usurps his own power system and leads people all kinds of astray. But again, he starts great. He looks the part. He looks just right. 1 Samuel 19 through 21 says this. Samuel replies, I am the seer. Go up to the place of worship ahead of me, and we will eat there together. And in the morning I will tell you what you want to know and send you on your way. And don't worry about those donkeys. They were that were lost 3 days ago, for they have been found. And I am here to tell you that you and your family are the focus of all Israel's hope. Saul replied, but I am only from the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest tribe in Israel, and my family is the least important of all the families of my tribe. Why are you talking to me like this? Again, a lot is happening here. Samuel starts by proving himself to be a prophet. He identifies the problem the donkeys are missing. He's got his answer. He proves something without being told. And he nullifies that problem right away, saying that they're found. Maybe the donkeys were right next door. Didn't know. But the donkeys were found. That worry's gone. But he also redirects the problem. He says, you're the guy that Israel desires. You, Saul, the one who is named asked for, is the one that is truly asked for. All of this is wrapped up in Samuel eventually being a good host and providing God's direction in the morning. Samuel saying that Saul is the answer to what Israel is hoping for, to have a king like everyone else. And wrapped up in all of this, when you see the word, some translations will use the word desire, or here it says the focus of all of Israel's hope. The word here is hamad, desire, which is almost always used positively, but here it's used in a negative light. In 1 Samuel 8, it says that the people desired a king. But they wanted a king like all the other nations. They wanted a king who everybody could see around them as working as a proper power structure. They didn't want God to be their first king anymore. They had rejected God, and they wanted something that they could tangibly see. And inside of Samuel's words to Saul is this sort of like backhanded compliment, saying, you're the guy. You're the guy that Israel is lusting for. You're the guy that will fulfill the desires to be like everyone else. You're the guy. If Saul was a little bit more spiritually in tune here, he might be able to ask the question, but I don't really want to be like what everybody wants. I want to be what God wants me to be. If he was a little bit more understanding in this moment. But Saul, again, is getting whipped along in all these events. And his first question, or his first statement is, who am I? I'm of the smallest tribe in Benjamin. My family's not that important, and why are you talking to me like this? A couple things happen here. Part of it could sound like a lie right here because, again, his family's super wealthy. Everybody knows who he is. He's super handsome. Everybody generally knows who he is. He's fairly important. If he's thinking in a sense where he's thinking about the history, yeah, he's not really the guy based on history. But based on looks, he's got it all. Samuel doesn't answer his question, though. Instead, he pulls him along, saying, Then Samuel brought Saul and his servant into the hall and placed them at the head of the table, honoring them above the 30 special guests. Samuel then instructed the cook to bring Saul the finest cut of meat, the piece that had been set aside for the guest of honor. This was done the day before. So the cook brought the meat and placed it before Saul, saying, Go ahead and eat it. Samuel said, I have been saving it for you even before I invited the others. So Saul ate with Samuel that day. These two, the servant and Saul, are placed at the head of the table in front of everyone who would be considered special. Radical honor. When they came down from the place of worship and returned to town, Samuel took Saul to the roof of the house and prepared a bed for him there. At daybreak the next morning, Samuel called to Saul, Get up, it's time you were on your way. So Saul got ready, and he and Samuel left the house together. When they reached the edge of the town, Samuel told Saul to send his servant ahead, and the servant was gone. After the servant was gone, Samuel said, Stay here, for I have received a special message for you from God. Again, Saul's whipped through all kinds of big events. He becomes the VIP in front of everybody. The meal is prepared beforehand. He's getting a taste of kingly pleasures, the high life. He's got all the attention. He's got a great meal. He's got great leisure. When he's given this bed outside, let's see, up here, it would be a extremely comfortable experience during their day. Warm, cool air at night. Warm, cool. Oxymoron, I guess. But he's given a very comfortable experience. He's given the most lavish form of treatment he possibly could experience. He's given a taste of what he's about to get for the rest of his life. You see, Saul's whipped along in all of this. He's got so much going on. He's got so much that he's experiencing. He doesn't understand everything that's going on. He's got all kinds of questions, and he's wrapped up in this big question of what's going to happen next. Where is Samuel going to take me to? He's about to be given this big proclamation of what God has said specifically to him. He's not necessarily the proper king, but he is the king of the moment. He's the king that people want. You see, there are all kinds of kings that we want versus the king that we need. Often there are things that we want in our day-to-day life. The things that we want, and when we want it now. It can be small things like a candy bar or Starbucks. Anybody a fan of Starbucks in here? Don't lie, I know more of you go there than you do. There could be larger things like political leaders or a significant other that we're hoping for, or that we're relying on. We're looking for things to fulfill our desires, to fulfill the hole inside of us, to fulfill the things to make us feel alive. We want something to, again, rule our life, to fulfill us and make us feel whole. The thing is, these things eventually consume us. The desires consume us. The desires of having a king consumed the Israelites. But again, we get consumed by all kinds of things that should serve us, or that should be something that we can walk through life with, that are not controlling us. Similar to how Batman is not somebody that anybody ever wants inside of the series. They want to all fix it their own way. The police want to fix it all their own way. And eventually they get to a point where they're stuck and they say, well, shine the bat signal, call on the bat phone. My wife is watching Batman right now, so that's what came to my mind. It's like nobody ever wants Batman at first, but eventually that becomes the solution. We don't always want the things that we need. We want what we want in the moment. We don't always want what we need. We see throughout this cycle, though, of Judges, through 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, and eventually all throughout history up to this day, that we always want whatever is right in our own eyes, or whatever is right in the moment. And we become consumed by the things that should serve us, and we lose sight of the bigger picture. In Isaiah 53, 1 through 6, we see this awesome image of a king that we need. Flashing behind us, we see in 1 Samuel 9, we see this king that everybody wants. He doesn't play the role well, and eventually it leads to King David, who plays the role well, who becomes a man after God's own heart, but still is only a shadow of the king that we need. In Isaiah 53, 1 through 6, it says, "Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain, like one from whom people hide their faces. He was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. He was pierced for our transgressions, and he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." Much later down the road, after all the kings have come and gone, after Israel had gone their own way, had gone into exile, God continued to work, and God continued to fulfill his promise, which eventually led to Jesus. And Jesus, in his day, was not the guy that everybody thought was the most attractive, or the strongest, or the best dressed, or the richest. He was held in low esteem. I'm sure if you didn't see him healing in the moment, people wouldn't notice him right away. But he was the king that came to save everything. He was the king that we needed, and he was the king that fulfilled all the promises and took on all the punishment that was meant for every thought and every word and every action that we commit against God. He took it all on, died with it, died with the punishment that was meant for us, and rose again, and lives forever as the one true king who conquered it all. He is the king that saves, and frankly, friends, the big idea again is the king that matters is the king that saves. If you have never prayed this prayer before, or accepted Jesus Christ into your life, I implore you to do so today. He is the answer to the hole that is inside all of us, and is the king that we need, versus just the king that we may want in the moment, or the thing to satisfy in the moment. So, if you'll pray with me. Father, God in heaven, we are easily distracted people, and we try to fix ourselves with so many things. We pray that we may see that you are the King of our lives and the answer to what we cannot solve. Father, I give you my life. Take me and change my heart. Help me to walk with you. In Jesus' name, amen. Friends, we have a good God. He is always, always good. At this time, Ignite can come up. Big idea today is the king that matters is the king that saves. And we're surrounded by all kinds of kings in our life that vie for our attention and vie for the things that place first in our hearts. We always have things that are fighting for that first place. And God gets pushed down to the bottom a lot of the time because we have so many things vying for control there. I challenge you this week to create a crown filter for yourself. For the next week, create a way for yourself to actively see a picture of a crown where it is most memorable. You can draw it on your hand. If your mom or dad says, don't do that, don't do that. I don't endorse it. I got yelled at for using permanent marker on my hands all the time. Put it on your phone background, your dashboard, on your car, or your bathroom mirror, or put a Post-it note on your TV. Be inventive. Put it in a place that's memorable, because what you want to do is you want to create a system to run it through our minds of what is controlling us the most. Is it our desires, or is it God? Who placed first? Is it just the king that we want in the moment? Or is it the king that matters, the king that we need, who will save us through and through? Holy. That's what I want to leave you with today. If you'll join us for singing. If you need prayer, I'll be up here. Pastor Scott is in the back. Butch is in the front right here.
Please stand if you're able.